give a little synopsis of what's been going on around here for the last little bit. So this is the basement, and we poured the floor this summer, nice concrete floor. It's the entryway to the basement here. I built the doors for the basement to close it off. They're 6.5 inches thick, have 4 inches of foam insulation in them. This one's a little over 4 feet wide, and this one is a little less than 4 feet wide. In the floor here we have a nice gutter at the door, floor drain gutter. Brought the water tank and got it hooked up, although I'm going to have to redo that again as I bring in the washer and dryer and some other things in here to run off of that. Right now it's plumbed out of the tank outside. There's a shut-off valve there. I've actually got it shut off here for running outside from the water tank into the pump. And and then that black line runs down to the bathhouse where we have the shower and currently have the washer and dryer, freezer. This wall is 3/4 inch plywood over the top of the ICFs, insulated concrete forms. And we've got outlets put in that wall. That is the service entrance for the house, and for both the electric and then for the phone and utilities there. Good sheetrock up all the way around. Wiring, there's a 20 amp circuit on that wall and that wall, and then there's a separate 20 amp circuit on this wall. So we got the sheetrock in. We got contacted a fellow to come and do the taping and mudding on it, but he hasn't had time yet. So got electrical lights in, fluorescent lights. Now those were some cheap shop lights that we got through our local True Value hardware store in town. They were on sale this summer. I think they were like $10 a piece for the fixtures. And down in my shop I've got the cheap work lights from I've got from Home Depot that were $7 to $10 a piece, $11 a piece, depending on what year we bought them. And compared to those might as well have come from Christie's. These are really cheap. So anyway, got all the tools and stuff for the sheetrock mounting and the wiring here, and the door build. So we've got we put PEX pipes in the floor. We've got 2 loops, 2 circuits in the floor. They're not going to be separate circuits. There'll be 1 circuit, but there's 2 separate loops in the floor. I started working on, I got pieces scattered all over the place here. The floor buffer. I was going to polish this floor up a little bit before we started bringing stuff in. The floor, we put lots of steel in it, some wire mesh, 6-inch wire mesh, and then rebar, and then they had fiber put into the cement, the concrete in the mix. And basically what that is short pieces of fiberglass, and it's mixed in with the concrete, and you can see the little hairs sticking up all over the place, the little fiberglass hairs sticking up all over the place there. So I wanted to run the buffer over that with a polishing wheel and try to get those knocked off a little bit before we started doing any finishing in here. And we have this old buffer that we salvaged 20 years ago. It was stuck in the storage since then, and as I started trying to run it, it would overheat, kick off the circuit breaker. So I pulled it all apart, put new bearings in the motor, and then these drive gears and stuff, I'll have to clean those up, and clean the grease out of those and clean the bearings up on them and put them back together. Had to clean the contactor up on the motor. Hopefully it'll work now once I get that going. But so that's pretty much what's been occupying our time through the fall. Now we had got utility run. Before we ever poured the footings in here, we dug a trench through here for the utilities, and basically what that amounts to is the sewer and the electrical and the utility, the phone utilities were all run in a trench, as well as the ground wire was drilled into the ground here under the before we ever did anything, we ever put the walls up. So the utilities went underneath the footings, and I noticed when I had dug the floor up right about here to put a J-trap in for this 2-inch floor drain here. This will be maybe a shower or something here, or a sink. Anyway, when I did that, I noticed that there was water backflowing along the utilities. Well, we dug out along the whole perimeter of the basement down to the bottom of the footings and put a 2-inch drain pipe in and drain rock, and then run it out underneath the footing, and this drain runs into that. And then well, we had a little problem out here. It's I'd ran drain along the bottom of the footings here all the way around the perimeter of the house, but where the utilities penetrate underneath the footing, water was running down the drain, and then it was dropping down below that grade into the utilities, along the utilities pipes. And even though they've been in there for a long time, the water was still migrating along those utility lines up into the house. So I had to dig this trench up and dig it down to run the drain pipe and the drainage underneath those utilities. So I dug up all this ditch here, 3 feet deep. I had drain pipe out to this area, and then an open ditch from here down. But I needed to dig it deeper and change the grade on it to get it to flow. So we had these decks of logs here. I had to move those all over to the other side of the driveway, and we actually dug about 6 foot off of that bank over there, straightened that ditch out, and run pipe underneath down in the bottom of the ditch, and then filled it with drain rock. And then so I didn't run it all the way out to where the drain goes underneath the floor here, but that's the drain down there. I haven't moved this deck of cedar yet. I need to do that to finish this, but it's draining right now. So anyway, we put the drain pipe in down there, and I put a 6-inch pipe in that's empty. That'll be for any future utilities, primarily if I get a wood-fired hot water boiler, which we'll put down below the house here, and then run the pipe up to the house. And there's a drain for wastewater there, and the white pipe is for fresh water to run down and put a hydrant down here. And then the gray pipe is just conduit. It's just empty, and that'll be in case we want to run something else up to the house at a future date. So anyway, we hauled a lot of rock in here, brought that all up level, nice, and then I restacked all those logs, got them up off the ground, and got them redecked up, and then hauled a lot of mud out over there on the other side of the chicken house. Right now, project is, well, I had this clay that we'd hauled up here last winter when it was frozen, before it froze up too hard to work, and we had a big pile of clay here. And so I came up and pulled that clay out and kind of filled this drainage in here, and I put some rocks in there so it's slow the water down so it doesn't erode that out. And I've still got some work to do up above there, but I graded this all out. And the reason I was able to do that is because this has been too soft to do anything with, but it's been freezing for the last week, a little over a week here. It's been around 25 degrees, or in the 20s at night, and get up to about 30 in the daytime, not warm enough to thaw the ground out. So the ground froze up and I could get the machinery out here and work on it. And the first thing I did, those are 40-foot trusses that we got off of a hangar that we salvaged, and we had those just piled up here on the ground, and then I couldn't get to them to move them anymore because there was the ground was too soft. So we were able to move those over, get them up off the ground and sticker them and cover them up, and then kind of straighten this mud out. And you can see how hard it froze. Let's see, there's about 8 inches to a foot of frozen mud there on top of that pile of mud. And I undermined it as much as I could and got as much out as I could. I actually had a soft spot where I had some other material stacked up here. I was able to get some leverage on it and dig it out, but it just got to the point where I couldn't get any more leverage on it. And so that's back there about 6 feet. That's undermined out about 6 feet, and that rind is holding up there. So anyway, I could have beat it down and broke it up by beating on it with the excavator, but that's too hard on the machine and the man operating it, who was me. And so I just left it there. It warms up, that'll all collapse down, and be able to do something else with it. But since it's froze up, I want to be able to get up behind the house, and it's been too soft because of the mud that I've hauled in here. So we got some rock we've been hauling in. I started hauling in last night. I got 2 loads, and to kind of build a trail or a road path around the house that I can get the machinery around there so we can work around the other side of the house. But it got dark last night and I was only able to get 2 loads, and then the fuse blew for the auxiliary on the truck, and it wasn't charging the battery up for the dump trailer, so we couldn't dump it last night, so I had to charge the battery up enough to get it to dump. And like I said, it's been cold here for a little over a week and freezing. Sunny skies, you can see blue skies, it's been beautiful. And then last night it warmed up into the 30s, and we had sleet and freezing rain and snow, and with that on the ground's froze hard, and so it froze to the ground, the freezing rain, and now we have it's not very much, it's just a little skiff, but it's icy, so that's going to end any running out and hauling any gravel or rock or anything here for a while. It's supposed to, like I said, it clouded up last night and warmed up a little bit, and we got the rain, a little bit of snow and freezing rain, and it froze on here, and maybe today it'll warm up enough that it'll melt that off. I'm going to take the excavator and scrape it down a little bit, so hopefully we can get it down to bare ground. But it's supposed to get cold again for a day or 2, and then before it warms up. So as long as it's slippery like this, we're not going to get anything else done. So right now it's a matter of dumping that load, getting it spread out, and then I'll start doing some other things around here.